Look serious.
We're good.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks, Shelley. So I want to welcome everyone to a special council session meeting for Wednesday, September 13th, 2023. Welcome to our staff and councilors and anyone who may be partaking in the proceedings. I'll call the meeting to order. We acknowledge that we're in Mi'kmaq, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Shelley, would you call the roll, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. Mayor Scott,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Joseph,
Present.
Councillor Gould,
Present.
Councillor Gilroy,
Present.
Councillor Hotelling. Councillor, yes, there, I knew she was here. Councillor Redmond. I believe Councillor Redmond may still be ill. Councillor McCormick.
Present.
Councillor Porter.
Said he was present.
He is present. I can see him. And Councillor Goodwin.
Present.
Okay, thank you. We're all done, Your Worship.
Thank you, Shelley. It's too bad that Councillor Redmond's not feeling better with us because today is her birthday. I wasn't going to say that, but just in case someone's missed it.
I was going to sing, but
Happy birthday to Councillor Redmond. Administrative and procedural issues 2.1, approve the agenda. So everyone would have a copy of the agenda. The short agenda has been circulated. I'd ask for a motion to approve the agenda as presented, please. Moved by Councillor Gilroy, seconded by Councillor Porter. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Reminded nay, nay, or raise your hand. Seeing none, motion is carried. Thank you. That brings us down to number 3, major organizational items. So 3.1 is the fire department capital budgets. Mr. Harrod, I believe, is going to speak to this.
I am, Your Worship. Thank you very much. I'm the author of this particular document, but lots of folks worked on this issue. And so I want to recognize Roger McIsaac, who's our project manager, Al Cole, who's the director of protective services, and Amy Hurdle, who's the director of finance. Everybody, all of those folks had a role in pulling this together. So I want to recognize those folks. The approved capital budget this past year included provision for a couple of fire stations, one in Spring Hill and one in Parsboro, with a bit of a placeholder estimate of $1.2 million each. And those were based on some previous experience we had in construction of fire halls. The project had been assigned to Roger McIsaac in his role as our project manager. And as you'll recall, he did a lot of great work on the Pugwash Library, and that's a facility that the community and all of us, certainly everybody on this call is proud of. And so lots of great work there. So Roger had been working on scoping out the projects, and reality hits in terms of per square foot cost of constructing a modern fire hall built to today's standards, built to the post-disaster standards in the National Building Code, and built to the square footage requirements of what a modern fire station needs to be, recognizing the fact that the fire stations in both Spring Hill and Parsboro will be hub stations under our new model of provision of fire service, and we certainly need them to be up to standards. The new fire stations need to have, for example, separation for apparatus equipment and personal protective clothing and equipment, appropriate space for decontamination, including sinks, showers, eye wash stations, and the like, and all of the other amenities that go with that. Large enough equipment bays to handle the dimensions of today's fire apparatus, which are certainly bigger than they were in the period of time when these two fire stations were built. Additionally, as I said, the municipality has been pursuing the implementation of a hub model of fire service where 4 strategically located stations will act as support hubs for surrounding fire stations. And both Spring Hill and Parsboro are designated as hubs. So investment in those facilities that meet both the current standard and the needs of the hub and local stations is important. If council is of the mind to approve the request that's before them today, our next step will be to issue a request for proposals for the construction of 2 new fire stations in Spring Hill and Parsville. So there are significant financial implications. As I said, the initial budget established for both buildings was $2.4 million. And we believe the best estimate at this point in time, based on per square foot costs and other amenities, is about $6.3 million. And so we're left with a requirement to borrow up just about $4 million, $3.957 million. And that will have forward financial implications. The debt service we'd be taking on is about $325,000 per year, principal and interest. And the way that we borrow from the Nova Scotia government, that amount will reduce each year as the interest requirement is retired through the amortization. We're looking likely at an amortization on this debt of about 20 years. Shorter than that, if the financial facts in and around the time that we permanently finance these projects makes that favorable. It's likely if council were to approve this and we issue the RFP and are successful getting design, build, contractor, architect team to build these facilities, and we get in the ground soon, it's likely that we will be doing the permanent financing early in 2025. So we have a couple of years before we actually have to borrow, permanently borrow the money. So I guess the only other comment I would have is that using a mix of gas tax funds, the $2.4 million, which is cash we have in the bank, and borrowing about $4 million is a nice mix in terms of which citizens and which taxpayers actually foot the bill for this provision of service. So it's a nice mix of surpluses built up through previous operations and from gas tax, and the debt service being paid by those who actually consume the service going forward. So in terms of municipal finance theory, it is a nice mix of who bears the cost of the service and providing the service. So I think with that, Your Worship, I've probably given enough of a summary of the project. The issue before council is that they increase the capital budget for these fire stations from $2.4 million to $6,357,400, and the additional funds come in the form of capital borrowing of $3,957,400. I'm happy to answer any questions that council might have, Your Worship. Can't hear you, Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Harrod. So yeah, Shelley, thank you for sharing the screen there. So just before we get into questions or comments or issues around the budget or the projects themselves. So the recommended motion is that council increase the approved total capital budget for the Spring Hill and Parsville fire stations from $2.4 million to $6,357,400, and that the additional funds come in the form of capital borrowing of $3,957,400. So if someone would like to make that motion, please, moved by Deputy Mayor Joseph, seconded by Councillor McCormick. So questions, comments, concerns for Mr. Harrod? Seeing none. Greg, you said 300,000 plus per year for 20 years, correct?
Beginning, it will decline, but 325 would be the first year. It will decline as the interest declines.
Right.
And that's subject to, that's an estimate, subject to the interest rate at the time that we finance it. So it could be more, it could be less.
Yeah, and just to be clear, that's for both facilities, correct?
Correct.
Yep. Okay.
The other detail I should add with the borrowing, and I see Councillor Gilroy's hand up, Your Worship, but if I could just throw in this tidbit.
Yep.
I talked earlier about it being good debt, about it being a nice long amortization. I don't know that I said that it was a nice an asset with a long useful life, and so we matched the amortization of the debt to the life of the asset. But the other thing to remember is that we've projected what our debt service ratios look like going forward, and so we do a calculation. Municipal Affairs is interested in our calculation of debt service, principal and interest, as a proportion of our own source revenue, so taxes and other internally generated funds. Their benchmark is about 15%, and even building in servicing this debt, our debt service ratio based on current revenues never exceeds 5%, which is a really good number. It dances around it pretty close, but it doesn't exceed 5%. So that's a good indicator as well. Thank you for the opportunity to say that. Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Gilroy, please.
Your worship. A couple of things. I'd like to say how pleased I am to see this group supporting the fire service and modernizing the fire service to the extent that we're now attempting to do. And hopefully the public gets some understanding through this process of what it actually costs to run a modern fire service in the county of Cumberland. So secondly, if the RFP comes back at dollars more than what we're approving here today, we will rethink the situation, or what will that do to us in case? I only say that based on experience in the last few days of pricing a building that has gone up 3 times in the last 4 months. And I'm worried that that might be the case here. So,
Your worship.
Yep, thank you, Councillor Gilroy. Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, look, that's certainly the reality we're in. I think we've seen it on a number of projects, whether it be buildings or pieces of equipment or dump trucks, where you establish a budget estimate based on the information you have, the best information you have at the time, and then you tender it or send it out for proposal, and it wildly exceeds your expectation. Look, if it's significantly over budget, we'll just have to take a step back and see what our options are, and council will have to make that decision based on the information we have at the time and what's affordable and what's doable from a logistics point of view. I will say that it's our hope, a little bit unorthodox, so in terms of how we're going to structure the RFP, but we are tendering these 2 buildings, the construction of these 2 buildings in the same procurement process. So we're hoping to get one contractor architect consortium, one team to both design and construct both buildings. We're hoping that there will be some economies of scale, not only in the construction, but particularly in the design phase as well. So we're I would invite Mr. McIsaac to comment on that, Your Worship, if you'd like, but we're hoping to build as much efficiency into that as we can, but we're still subject to the whims of what the market will give us. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Mr. McIsaac, you want to add into that?
I think Greg was right on when he says that in today's environment, we really don't know where the pricing is going to go. We've taken reasonable steps in determining what our budget should be, and I think the market will hopefully guide us somewhere close to what we budgeted. And the way we structured the RFP, we're explaining to the proponents what we're looking for, what our wishes are, what we envision in a fire station, both what our needs and our wants are, and the wants are much less than our needs. And hopefully they'll interpret that information to a product that suits both Parsboro and Spring Hill and comes in within budget.
Thank you. Any other thoughts, comments in regards to this agenda item?
Just if I could, one
Yep,
last thing.
please. Yep.
Just something that Roger said, and I know everybody on this call would understand it, but I do want to emphasize. Roger talked about, we'll meet the needs of Spring Hill and Parsboro, and so with our model going forward, the hub model, it is about the needs of those communities, but it's also about the needs of the local stations that surround those hub stations. So it's not just about the communities of Spring Hill and Parsboro; it's about the other stations that are around them that will gain the support in terms of logistics and training and those other sort of fire protection prevention services. So it really is more than just those communities. Thank you.
Thank you. The other part that we would have seen in the document prepared for us is about new fire station Nova Scotia that are being built, post disaster standards, and I think there's a lot of changes there as a result of that. I don't know, Roger, if you can comment on that, but it seems like that there are a lot of things that have changed the last few years that require additional changes to structures like this, which obviously means more money. So that leads to additional costs as well. Just note that that's in your comments. That's all, Roger.
Oh, you're correct there. All fire stations, police stations, public buildings such as that have to be built post disaster to post-disaster standards. Years ago, you could basically build a garage, attach a community hall to it, and call it a fire station. That doesn't work anymore. Fire stations have become much more than just a community hall. And the health and safety of the firefighters have to be taken into consideration. So you had the dirty side of the fire station in terms of the equipment and anything that they work with. And then you have your clean side in terms of your training facilities, areas where the community would gather in times of emergencies. And you need things such as showers. You need to have your compressors and your anything like that separated from where the apparatus is. And our firefighters have to be able to get to the apparatus and get to the scene of a fire or an accident very quickly.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or thoughts on this agenda item? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. So all those in favor of the motion say aye or raise your hand, please. Can't you mind it, nay, or raise your hand, please. Motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks to everybody involved. Great luck between you and your staff and Amy and Alan and Roger and everyone's been involved in this great work to see brought forward, and it's terrific for fire service for Cumberland County for sure. Yeah. Hope that brings us to the end of our agenda. I'd ask for a motion to adjourn, please. Moved by Councilor Gilroy. We are adjourned. Thank you, folks. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks very much, everybody, for being here. Bye for now.
Thanks. Rod, you still there? Can you give me a quick call? Rod? Yeah, okay.